We are assembled here for a very brief but significant ceremony this morning, one in which we celebrate the talents, expertise, knowledge, innovativeness, creativity of some of us gathered here, and more importantly, to celebrate the importance of agriculture, being able to come up with creative ways to produce food that enables us to feed ourselves. I want to address a few words to the students. I want to appeal to you young people, the rising seniors. You are the fourth formers, the rising seniors. You have to demonstrate a level of accountability, leadership, discipline, respect, and help your teachers to run this institution well. I know that some of you are prefects because your principal made the decision to have fourth formers fill those roles. I still believe that it is a role that belongs to the fifth formers. In spite of the fact that they have a lot of studies to do, I still believe that it is a role that fifth formers should fill. So maybe it might be a good thing if you have done your jobs well, that your principal should reappoint you as prefects when you get up to fifth form. And it's a role in the schools that I take very seriously. It's a role that I respect. For me, today is one of my proud teacher moments. And I don't like to pass up proud teacher moments. In this audience, and some of you would have heard me say this before, when the Honorable Sean Richards was a sixth grader, he was in my class. I was his sixth grade teacher. Today he is my boss. Mr. Buchanan and Mr. Laplace and Pastor Dixon, there were students here. Well, let me add the teachers, Miss Eddie, Miss Paris, and Mr. Brown. They were all students here during my tenure. So for me, this is a proud teacher moment. Mr. Buchanan is an assistant secretary. He has responsibility for finance. He is basically my right-hand man in the ministry. So for me, it's a great teacher moment to have one of my students come back and be able to guide me in my work. To tell us more about the hydroponics, give us some background and so on, I'm going to ask you to give a round of applause to I want to say Dr. Stuart Laplace, to come and tell us about hydroponics.
Now this project, it's a very important, and not only important to you guys, but very important to me as well, that I could actually come back to my old school and implement and start up this innovation. Now, as Mr. Hodge pointed out, this is a passion of mine. I'm very much involved with hydro for the past 10 years. I've worked in almost every island in the Caribbean, implementing this either at the college level or at the high school level. I've worked with various institutions in the US and Europe, South America as well. Now to come back home here now and implement at the Sunny Point High School, it's words can't describe. Now what we have here, it's a hydroponic system with two different designs. The first design that is closest to the door, this one was done for the very first time, And as you can see where we are in Sandy Point High School, so you guys should be proud of that. This is the very first time it has been unveiled anywhere. Now, that system is specifically designed to produce greens, crops like lettuce, kale, parsley, and most of those plants and cultivars that are similar in terms of their growth rate and patterns, etc. The one in the back, that's an innovative design that was also developed here in St. Kitts for the very first time. That is the design that we have taken across the world. So persons across the globe are using that model as well, which was developed here in St. Kitts by us. And that system, you can grow up to 25 different plants, not at the same time, but the system has the capacity to grow a lot of those crops. Now, the concept behind this whole innovation is to share with the youngsters, because as young people we are very much into the technology, and I'm sure the practices of old in agriculture has, well, not has, but is slowly becoming null and void. A lot of our young people are losing interest. They don't, find the need to get their hands dirty. So hopefully with this new design, there's no dirt involved, there's no soil. The harvesting is pretty simple, as you would see when we have some harvesting done in a little while. And it's something that you don't have to be babysitting all day and all night. You just need a few checks in the morning and in the afternoon. So once the students grasp this concept, then it makes everybody else's job a lot easier. The teachers, the concept about entrepreneurship, where you can take some of these models, into your homes and start a small business. Also helps to improve the nutritional value in terms of what we eat and identifying where our food comes from. So you have a more direct relationship with the plants. You also save on imports. You also save on a perishable resource, which is water, because all these systems are recirculation systems, so the water just continuously moves around. We have a lot of research and data on a lot of plants, which we share from time to time with colleagues across the globe. And what we're hoping to do is to start a system in the schools where you get support from the CFBC, and my team specifically, and we train and we guide. So these systems are not just here and we're just handing them over and we're hands off. That's clearly not how it's going to be. We're going to be still very much involved with what goes on at the various schools, and we plan to start a training session soon with the different agricultural teachers in the Federation to showcase, sensitize, assist, and show how we could improve the agricultural situation in our country and how to improve in terms of making the produce available for school farming practices, SBAs, research, and also a money-making generator. So you could sell the produce and get an income, which can help with improving with the needs around the school. And also to showcase that agriculture is no longer a man thing or a woman thing, but it's an everybody thing, and you don't have to be a genius to do agriculture. This type of agriculture, I've made it very much simplified, so it's very easy to operate and use, and you can grow a very wide range. Now hopefully we could also network the schools in the Federation into what they're growing, and they can switch crops. Like this year you plant spinach, next year I plant tomatoes, peppers, etc. And that way we kind of build a culture where we can move forward and have the importance of feeding ourselves becoming the number one talk. And also it gives you more disposable income if you could spend less on imports and gain more by growing it yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Laplace. In our midst this morning, as was recognized already, we have Dr. Eric Brown, who is an agriculturist, you could say. He has a doctorate. So that's inspiration for you students. It's not just learning to cultivate a couple of crops. If you feel you want to be, you know, an expert to achieve higher degrees in agriculture, the scope is there. And so because this is very important to our agricultural sector, we thought it very important to invite somebody from the Ministry of Agriculture to, you know, add a few words to the ceremony. So at this point, we're going to ask Dr. Brown to come and say something.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hodge. Pleasant good morning to each and everyone. When we consider the society today, we are fully aware of certain aspects like climate change, economic downturns, and when we think of all of these things at times make the future seems uncertain. But in the changing environment, it has been, it is, and it will continue to be our responsibility to ensure that we have adequate supply of food in quantity and quality. But before we can reap a bountiful harvest, we must ensure that key elements are in place. Not only in place, but are in optimum condition, so as to give unto us the well-needed support that we should have. One of those key elements we must pay keen attention to is our student body. Why? Because they represent the future of our society. They represent the driving force behind this responsibility that we have. So it is of utmost importance that they are provided with the necessary mechanisms, necessary tools to ensure that their task is as easy and efficient as possible. Hydroponics, as explained by Mr. Laplace, is one of those efficient tools. And I am elated to know that here we have Mr. Laplace imparting to our students this technology. Because when we think of climate change, many of the production processes in the field is threatened to the point where sometimes it is impossible. But hydroponics with this particular system helps to eliminate some of these difficulties. We are in a hurricane zone, and it is essential that after disasters such as hurricanes, that our food supply is up and running, the mechanisms are up and running as quick and efficiently as possible. And this hydroponics lends itself to that. Students learn as much as possible, because these mechanisms, even though you may choose different career paths, can be employed and on different scales, whether it's large scale, medium, or even small scales. Small scales is important. As the adage say, 1-1 fill basket. No thing is too small to be employed to have an impact. As a matter of fact, when we speak of impact, look at the buildings around you, made of blocks. But the great buildings must start with tiny units. This unit may look small to some, but it will have a great impact. Food security is our responsibility, now and forever.
Very well said, Mr. Dr. Brown, sorry. Words of inspiration. The Ministry of Education is endeavoring to establish one of these hydroponics units at all of our secondary schools. One of the persons closely associated with this is Mr. Carl Francis. He's from Newton Ground, he's a past student of the school. He's our project manager in the Ministry of Education. He's not here this morning, but he and Mr. Buchanan work closely to get this unit up and running, and along with Mr. Stuart Laplace as well. And Courtney Thompson, yes, Courtney Thompson, another graduate from here who works in our TVET office. So we will be taking these units to all the secondary schools, and Mr. Morris and Barnsley High can look forward to this coming on the stream. At this point, we're going to ask the Honorable Minister to bring brief remarks and to hand over the unit to our principal, after which we're going to do some symbolic harvesting in the unit. Okay, please welcome Minister Richards.
Mr. Hodgin, his remarks indicated that he would have taught me in grade 6 at the primary school. However, having left grade 6, I would have transferred to this very same school, the then Sandy Point High School. And like you, the students present here this morning, I would have done agriculture from first form right up until fifth form. Agriculture back then for students entailed going to the school garden on some days during the week, and you would go to where you have the biology science integrated labs to collect your equipment, your forks, etc., your hand forks, etc., and you would go to the garden for the practical part of your education. Therefore, as students, that became a daily routine for us. Of course, you would recognize that there are certain things that we had to ensure that we did on a weekly basis. Whatever crops it is you were growing, you had to ensure that, be it during class time or sometimes beyond class time, you had to go to the garden to do weeding, to water, whatever it is you're growing, basically to ensure that the crops were maintained in such a condition that at the end of the day you were at least able to reap something, and it also became a part of your reports for class and also for the SBAs that one had to do for CXC. Over time, the school agriculture project has sort of moved away from that, in that I am aware that you now journey to Basti to go to the school's farm to do quite a bit of your SBA project. This morning, though, represents a new phase and a different innovation in the teaching of agriculture here at this high school. Before I go any further, let me thank Mr. Laplace for approaching the Ministry of Education with the technology and inviting us to partner with him to ensure that our students are able to learn the technology and to take advantage of the technology. As such, Sandy Point High School has become the first beneficiary of this particular project. Let me add, though, as indicated by the Permanent Secretary, that the project is one which will be instituted in all of the secondary schools. As a matter of fact, we already began the necessary work just about the same time that we began here in Sandy Point to implement the project at the Sadler's Secondary School. Mr. Morris rest assured that you, like the other high schools, will also receive your fair share in terms of this project. But more important than where the project has begun is the fact that it has begun in the secondary schools here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Students, this is a golden opportunity for you. Not a golden opportunity from the standpoint that perhaps there would be less of a requirement for you to go to Bastille to the school farm. But it is a golden opportunity for you in that you are learning a new technology. A new technology, which as pointed out by Dr. Brown, it should bring immense benefits, not just to your students, not just to this institution, but to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Hydroponics is such that, as pointed out by Mr. Laplace, you're basically recycling water. So less water is required. You basically only have to come here maybe once in the day in the morning to ensure that things are going okay. Mr. Brown from the Agriculture Department, and I'm sure most of you are also aware of the fact that once ago you found monkeys in the hillside. That is no longer the case. Many of our farmers are complaining that monkeys are destroying their produce even before they reach to the stage that the farmers can get some sort of income after putting in an investment. This technology is relatively secured from monkeys, and so you don't have to worry about that particular problem which is plaguing our farmers. As a matter of fact, it is a technology that can be used right in your backyards. You don't need the same type of land space that would have been required using the traditional method of farming. The nutrients that you need, probably much cheaper. The equipment, yes, there is an initial investment in equipment that is probably a little costly, but once you would have made that initial investment, you are able to reap the benefits of the investment, and you don't have to necessarily put in the same thing over and over again. For example, you have our farmers, when they are ready to replant, they have to go to the Agriculture Department, ask for a tractor to come to harrow the land, etc. They probably have to get help from some persons in order to reap the crops, and all of those other traditional methods of doing agriculture. We are moving beyond that. Too often I can say to you that the Ministry of Education is faced with a maintenance cost because students do not take proper care of the assets which are placed in their care. Too often, students do not take care of the assets that are placed in their care. As the Ministry of Education, yes, we are mindful that you have students within the different schools, and you will experience wear and tear. And so regular wear and tear, of course, we do expect that. I am appealing to you to take good care of this facility, and not just take good care of it, but ensure that other students also take good care of the facility. It is here for your use. You're in 4th form. You're expected to use it in 5th form, but there are other students who will come after you. As you go out into the field of work, some of you may end up working in the field of agriculture. You have a new technology that you can put on your resume and say to any employer looking to hire you that you have been able to work with this particular piece of technology, and so you come to him or her with an advantage that other students do not have. The last point that I want to make is that as a nation, we import far too much of the food that we consume. For an island that has been recognized as having quite a bit of arable lands, we can do more in terms of agricultural production. We are hoping that by exposing more and more persons to different ways of doing farming, to different ways of doing crop production, that eventually the output here in St. Kitts and Nevis will increase. I don't suspect that we will ever become self-sustainable as a nation, but as much as we are able to feed ourselves, we should endeavor to do so. With those remarks, I want to say thanks again to Mr. Laplace and the team at CFBC. I say thanks to the persons within the Ministry of Education who work to ensure that this project has become a reality. I also say thanks to you, the students and staff at the Charles E. Mills Secondary School, for working along with the Ministry of Education to ensure that the project also came into being here at this institution. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Richards, for your usual sound words, and to thank you for your commitment to what is your dream, what is your vision for your ministries of education, youth, sports and culture in St. Kitts and Nevis. Minister Richards is very committed to seeing growth and development in his ministries in particular. You know, as the permanent secretary, you get to know the minister close up in terms of those things which he agonizes over. And I can tell you, the minister has a passion for wanting to see young people achieve excellence, not only in education, but in sport, in culture, and those other areas. So we want to again thank the minister for his commitment to his vision for his ministry. Please put your hands together again for minister. Right. So we're going to invite the student who is going to say thank you on our behalf to come forward and say a word of thanks, and then we'll do the harvesting and symbolic handover. Okay. Thank you.
On behalf of the Charles E. Mills Secondary School, we thank you for your generous donation of the hydroponic system, and I can assure you that the students will take care of it and use it to the best of our abilities and teach the upcoming generation how to use it as well. Once again, I thank you.